All right, Jerry. Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee has been a vocal supporter of Kim Davis. She's the Kentucky county clerk who's in jail for refusing to issue marriage licenses for same-sex couples. Governor Huckabee joins me now. Governor, would you go to jail for religious principle?
Absolutely, I would.
If you were in that situation, yes. Would you refuse to give a marriage license to gay couples and go to prison for it?
Because there comes a point at which you have to exercise what you believe is your conscience. If your faith is so small that you would sell it off for your job or for anything, then it's really not a faith that is the foundation of everything you are.
If the Supreme Court says this is the way it is in our country, you'd still do that? The
Supreme Court said in 1857 that black people weren't fully human. Thank God Abraham Lincoln didn't agree with that. Thank God he didn't follow that. If he had, he just said, well, that's the law of the land, nothing I can do about it.
Is this a distraction for your presidential campaign?
No, it is not a distraction. This whole issue points out just how far this country has drifted from the rule of law. I keep hearing people say they're the rule of law. Well, the rule of law is you have 3 equal branches of government. We learned that in 9th grade civics. And the Supreme Court cannot make a law. They can review a law, they can interpret one, but Jefferson, Hamilton, Lincoln, Jackson, all were very clear. Jefferson's exact words were that if you have the Supreme Court, in essence, making a law, you've turned the Constitution into, and I quote, a thing of wax. So here's the thing. The court makes a decision, but then the people's elected representatives need to enable and empower that decision by legislation that codifies it. Here's my question. Exactly what statute did she violate? In fact, there's 75% of the Kentucky voters voted to affirm marriage. Nothing in the federal Constitution says a word about marriage. And interestingly, go ahead.
What I want, I mean, just me personally, what I want is a campaign based on prosperity, return to growth
Me
of
too.
the United States economy.
Love to.
What you're talking about is a distraction. You're arguing over something which the Supreme Court has said, this is the way it is.
So you believe that's final? That's the last word?
But I don't think you're not going to get that changed at any time soon, are you?
Well,
meanwhile,
let me
we want prosperity now.
If the decision had gone the other way and it had been a 5-4 decision in favor of traditional marriage, would the left say, well, that's it, that's the law of the land, we give up, we're finished? Would that have happened, Stuart?
No, but I don't think the left would base their campaign on that particular issue.
I believe they would have made it a centerpiece. But look, I'd love to talk about taxes, I'd love to talk about national security, and out on the campaign trail, I do. But when you have a county clerk that is put in jail without bail in the United States of America, I've been to Gitmo, I've seen the accommodations that are given to the detainees there who are terrorists. We put arrows in the cells so they can make sure they point toward Mecca to pray. We give them halal meals every day so that they are able to accommodate their faith. And yet we've got a county clerk in Kentucky who is in jail with no bail. Look, John Wayne Gacy got bail. Jeffrey Dahmer got bail. The Boston Strangler got jail. But a county clerk in Kentucky doesn't? There's something wrong with that, Stuart.
I've got 20 seconds left. If you're elected president, will you give me a tax cut?
I'll do something better than that. We'll pass the fair tax. We will not tax any of your productivity ever again. You'll just pay tax at the point of sales and consumption. And it would transform this economy. That's what we need to talk about.
We should have been spending 3 minutes
Well, invite me back, and that's what we'll do.
Okay, you're on.
All right.
Careful, you'll be back. Governor, it was a pleasure.
Great to see you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.